Our NBA draft scouting report series continues here on the Sleepers Media YouTube channel. Today we are talking about everybody's favorite Duke Blue Devil, Kyle Filipowski. Not a fan of court storms, but a fan of NBA draft prospects. He's projected to be a first round pick, probably outside the lottery. We'll see who can say in this class. We have different categories we're going to get into him with, about him with, but Riley, give us a sense of his game overall. If you had to break his game down, what does that look like?
Yeah, he is a finesse big who's really comfortable playing on the perimeter, has a nice little shot fake, get to the rim, excellent touch around the basket, did a lot of playmaking for Duke this past season. They sort of ran their offense through him for a large chunk of the season. Decent shooter. The shot doesn't look broken by any stretch. Probably doesn't go in at quite the clip you want it to. He was only 38%, or excuse me, 35% this past year, 31% from his career. But yeah, the jump shot is definitely workable.
Yeah, I think so. So, if you had to sum it up in one word, what would that be? What would that word be? His game.
Finesse. And I know I wish I wouldn't have used that to describe him out already, so I didn't spoil it. But yeah, finesse. He's um almost leans on that entirely. Isn't I wouldn't say he's isn't super physical, can get pushed around a little bit, but yeah, I think he's more so able to make plays with his touch, with his perimeter skill, with his agility, like beyond the arc.
Yeah, I need to be heard out with this word, but my word for him is annoying. I think that holds several different meanings. I think he is annoying to play against because he is somebody who is just solid with his game. And you don't feel like he's really taking anything over. And you look up and he's got 18 points and 10 boards. And you're like, when did that happen? I think he's annoying in that standpoint. I also think he's annoying in the way a lot of popular white Duke players end up being annoying, where he's a little bit whiny, a little bit floppy. I mentioned the court storming thing and the way that was perceived nationally by non-Duke fans. Anyway, I think I have annoying, both a good and bad standpoint. I have annoying down for Filipowski. Now, his game is finesse based, as you mentioned. There is really good shooting. There's some other pieces to his game. He's fairly polished, but I think it's fair to question if he's going to hit his floor or his ceiling in the NBA. How much more potential is there necessarily for him to grow into? So if we're looking at this, is he more likely to hit his floor in the NBA or more likely to hit his ceiling?
I think floor, and it almost entirely hinges on the jump shot. He's a fine rebounder. You probably want him to be a little bit better at that, considering he's a 7 footer. I would probably say less than fine when it comes to defending other fives down low. I think he's really we can get into this with some of the comps and best case scenario, but I think
Mm-hmm.
he's really good at defending on the perimeter. He moves his feet super well. He's good on closeouts, good instincts, can guard in space. But if he's gonna be a four, that jumper has to come along more than it's at right now, and that's what sort of scares me to where I put him down to hit his floor more so than a ceiling.
I have floor two because I think he is pretty good in everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned, he can move his feet. His shot is fine. He can handle the ball a little bit for a big man. He can rebound well. Um, but I don't know if anything has the potential to be great. Let's put it that way. There's certainly the opportunity for it to, but a lot of that's going to come with, I think, being a little bit tougher,
Mm-hmm.
playing stronger, not necessarily being stronger because he's a pretty strong guy, but
Right.
playing stronger, being a little bit quicker with your moves, not being as dependent on the flow of the game, being a
Mm.
little bit more um, decisive and impactful with what you want to do as opposed to going with the flow.
I
Um,
I think that's spot on. Like I would say again, some of what he can do on the perimeter, his ability to handle for a big is pretty rare at his size, but he definitely gets caught over dribbling sometimes. And even what you were saying to the physicality point, like I'll reference this again when you and I were both in the press section in press row for UNC Duke in Chapel Hill. I
mhm.
was rewatching that game, and he had one of his classic like shot fake from the perimeter, try to get to the basket. He loves to go to that spin move, and he just got completely walled off by Armando Bacot at the basket. I
Yeah.
love Bacot. I'm a Tar Heel. Let it be known that the Tar Heel did not say Kyle Filipowski is annoying. It's the other guy here, so don't give any hate toward me. Uh, Bacot was a fantastic, absolutely fantastic college defender, but he's going to see a lot better defenders at the 5 position at the next level, and so it's that type of physicality that worries me as well.
Yeah. So I think he's more likely to hit his floor. I do think his floor is still a decent NBA player, depending on where he goes. And that
Mm-hmm.
takes us to best team fit. We have him projected to be the later part of the first round. There's a chance he can go in the lottery, middle of the first round, but it's more likely he goes into the first round. So looking at teams in that range, Riley, who do you think is the best team fit for him?
I'd go with the New York Knicks. I like Tibbs' ability to get the most out of him from a physicality standpoint. I like that he'd have to, go bang with Isaiah Hartenstein during practice. I think when you see how they use Julius Randle pre-injury, Randle kind of did a lot of that same ISO type stuff from the 5 position. That there's an archetype there. There's a history of success that they can point to for his developmental curve.
See, I don't know if he would handle that the way he would need to handle that.
He's
Right.
from New York. He'd be the hometown kid coming
Yeah.
home.
So I think he needs to step in and have a pretty decent role right away
Mm-hmm.
just to get the most out of his skills, right? He's somebody who, to me, I don't know if he can adapt, at least right away, to being a role player because, at least for me evaluating him, I think he needs some time to figure out what his NBA skill is, like what his role is. Again, good at everything, not necessarily great at something. Because of that, I have the Wizards as his best fit. The Wizards are 26. They have the Clippers first round picks. So we go 26 to the Wizards. I think he'd be able to find himself at the NBA level with the Wizards. He'd have the opportunity to work through some things. He'd have a decent role right away. And if his best case scenario, I think, is a very, very good player, a very good player. And the Wizards, I think, can swing on that late in the first round.
Counterpoint, Kyle Kuzma would have him iced out within like 2 or 3 weeks. He'd be more focused on getting fits off, posted on the gram, and just losing like 60 games every year. and we
Number one, that fits into the annoying word that I use to describe him. Number two, I think if you trade Kuzma, Filipowski can kind of fill that role. And there is some talk about them trading Kuzma, trying to get some picks for him. So I think there's the potential for that too. His peak year in the NBA, Filipowski. What does that look like statistically?
I probably think he's like a 9 to 10 point per game scorer. Let's say like 6 or 7 boards. I'll give him like 2 assists too, because I think he is an underrated playmaker. Just a solid bench piece.
Okay, so we are really disagreeing on this.
Oh, let me hear it.
I think his peak year, and this will lead into our next category as well. I think his peak year is about 18 points, 8 boards, and 4 or 5 assists in
Wow,
game.
that is a lot higher than me. I still had him
Yeah,
19th on my big board. I feel like he's again the even though I'm a little bit concerned about the jumper, the perimeter defense, the skill, the finesse that we talked about is there to make him feel relatively safe. But I would still say safe as like a rotation piece, not to like a to 18 point
yeah.
per game score.
See, this leads into, I think, the next category. So I'm going to go ahead and go there, and I'll merge these two when I talk. I think in 5 years he's a starter for a bad team, and we're going to grade everybody that we talk about in these videos on the Sleepers Media YouTube channel. So make sure you like and subscribe. But where they're most likely to be at in 5 years, whether they're an All NBA player, an All Star, starter, bench guy, whether they're in the G League, overseas, or out of the league entirely, and hosting a podcast like we are. I think he is a prime candidate to be a starter on a bad team who gets a lot of empty stats. Some of that goes in with the Wizards team fit that I picked for him too. But to me, he's very skilled. He's very skilled. I think he has potential to do a lot of things. I think his floor is somewhat high because of that. If he gets to a spot early on, somewhere like the Wizards, where he has a big role, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a winning player as a starter. He's not somebody who strikes me as an impact guy on like an NBA Finals team as a starter per se. but I think he can be an empty stats guy on a team that's picking in the top 5 or top 10 in the draft. And that to me is where he gets the 18, 8, and 5.
Probably won't surprise you going with my peak stats. I just think he's a bench guy.
Yeah.
Maybe a spot starter. I could see him being a bench guy for a good team. I think it is important, like the pedigree. He was a top 5 recruit coming out of high school. He's been a
Yep.
part of 2 good teams in college. But yeah, and I think, yeah, Duke has a really good track record of having guys stay in the league,
Yep.
even late first, early second round picks. They've had great staying power in that. So it's really tough for me as much as like the UNC fan and hater in me wants to be like, oh yeah, he'll be a podcaster in 5 years. I have a really tough time seeing him flame out of the league. I think he'll
I
have a
do
good
too.
career.
And I know there might be a contrast between saying his peak year is going to be 18, 8, and 5 and his more likely his floor than his
Mm-hmm.
ceiling. I think that 18, 8, and 5 may be an aberration year. You can empty stats on a good team. I also think if he's able to what's the word I'm looking for? If he's able to carry all of those things he's good at and become great at them, I think there's potential for him to be a all-star, potential all-NBA caliber guy. Like I think his ceiling
Wow.
is pretty high. I don't think he hits that. I don't think he
Mm-hmm.
gets there, but I do see a scenario where that's the case. So that's why there's that disparity there. Let's go with his superlative now. We're giving every one of the top 75 prospects a superlative, yearbook style. So for Kyle Filipowski, he is the most likely to do what in this draft class?
Get fined for chirping at a ref. And that superlative goes from most likely to a lock if he lands on the Knicks, like I hope he does.
Yeah, I had most likely to be suspended for flopping.
Oh wow.
So
Once again.
very much in lockstep. It also fits the annoying word I used to describe him. I think that fits. Gonna be some fun player comps for him. That is a Kyle Filipowski scouting report. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because we're gonna get into in another video Filipowski's best case and worst case player comps.
The NBA draft is coming up, and I've got something awesome for you. We are partnering with the people at NBA 2K Lab. NBA 2K is the best video game on earth. The people at 2K Lab are making some awesome stuff to make that game even more fun, and they just launched their 2024 NBA Draft Simulator, where you can find the official Sleepers Media big board. We ranked our top 75 players in this draft class. Me, Carter, Brian Ralph, Riley Davis. We did it together, and it is featured on the 2K Lab NBA Draft Simulator. You can take control of any team in the draft, play GM with just one click, and see our entire rankings before these videos even come out. Check out the link in the description of this video to try out the draft sim for yourself, and you can find more mini games at nba2klab.com/NBA-mini-games.